everyone, and welcome to another video from Sweet Heaven. This time I want to share with you my sweet husband.
Hi.
And we wanted to just go into the Bible and read some really interesting verses that we read a few days ago together, and he brought just so many things out of these verses that I thought it's really interesting and we should share it with all of you. We will be reading a psalm, and it is the Psalm 127. And we know these verses, we know those words normally, but there is so much behind that, and it really gave me some really peace by understanding them better. So yeah, you can.
Yeah, I think it's good to maybe give some context. So basically what was happening was my wife and I were talking about situations that are going on all around us. Obviously, it seems like the world is falling apart, the economy is falling apart, religiously, politically, everything is in chaos. Famines are coming. I mean, really hard times are in front of us. And so the question is, okay, obviously there's wise counsel, there's wisdom in not having children because you don't want to see the children suffer, you don't want to suffer, and that's a hard thing, right? So at the same time, God tells us to be fruitful and to multiply. And so there were people that 70, 80 years ago thought that Jesus was coming very soon, and I still think Jesus is coming very soon. But how do we look at this in a healthy perspective? And so that's why my wife was really struggling with some fears and different things. And
because as a mom, it's, I think, always a little bit more difficult than for a dad, because you're just involved with them and you're just a more emotional personality.
But we want to kind of build our house too, because what we've seen is that for our children, they're really good friends with each other. We think that like building our home is the most awesome thing. Well, I think it's the most awesome thing that you can do, because if you teach them to become friends, they will be forever friends. Really, because there's nobody that can take those other children away. It's only up to us, and of course with God's help, not without God's help, but with God's help, to secure that friendship and make sure that they learn to love one another. They learn to bless one another, right? Mm-hmm. They're not hating one another, they're not fighting, and of course fighting happens, but to learn how to live in the Spirit, right? Yeah. So I think that this psalm really kind of encapsulates all that and tells us what to do with our fear.
Yes, exactly.
So it's a song that would be sung at the time of the feasts. It's called a song of ascents, or a song of degrees, some Bibles say. But the idea was that the Israelites, when they went up to Jerusalem, they would sing this song. Mm-hmm. And some Bibles say it was written for Solomon. Some say it was written by Solomon. Regardless, it's interesting because it talks about building the temple or building a house. Mm-hmm. Okay? And also guarding that house, or keeping it, protecting it, which of course is most, I think, husband's interest is to guard and to protect. So it says, maybe you should read it and then read it all and then we can discuss
the whole
it.
Song?
I think it would be good.
Okay. Except the Lord build a house, they labor in vain that build it. Except the Lord keep the city, the watchman waketh but in vain. It is vain for you to rise up early, to sit up late, to eat the bread of sorrow, for so he giveth his beloved sleep. Lo, children are an inheritance of the Lord, and the fruit of the womb is his reward. As arrows are in the hand of a mighty man, so are children of the youth. Happy is the man that hath his quiver full of them. They shall not be ashamed, but they shall speak with the enemies in the gate.
That sounds awesome. All right. So it really begins kind of in an abrupt way, right?
Yeah.
And it almost sounds like somebody's talking, and then it's a response. Except, right? Except the Lord builds the house, except Jehovah builds the house. They labor in vain that build it. It means it's empty. It's for nothing. You can build a house, and all that building, it takes a lot of time, a lot of resources, a lot of effort and manpower to build a house. Much more than when it was Solomon's temple. But it's like building your home, right?
And I think that is also very accurate for marriage when you search with whom to build your house with.
It needs to be with the Lord, right?
Exactly. Because if you get involved without the Lord, you end up building in vain and you don't get the goal that the Lord had in plan.
And there are so many marriages that get absolutely nowhere.
Exactly.
Absolutely nowhere. Just because the Lord's not in it. There's or one of the spouses, they were like, wow, she's really beautiful. I'm going after her. And she had no faith, right? She has no spirituality. She has no desire for the Lord. Nothing about the Bible. In fact, when you have the Bible, she maybe despises you and hates you and wants to be a hindrance to your spirituality. So that's not good. The Lord needs to be in it, and the Lord needs to build the house, or else it's just for nothing. Okay? Now, it says, except the Lord keeps the city. Literally means guards the city, okay? The watchman, he wakes, but it's in vain. It's for nothing. Now, what is a city built up of?
People.
Okay, but more in the context.
Houses.
Houses. You have cities, and inside the cities are houses, and inside the houses are families, right? Husbands and wives and children, families, homes. Communities are built up of homes, okay? And homes are built up of individuals. So that really gives us the order of how spirituality and how the Lord wants to keep the city, right? Lord can only keep the city based on your own individual spiritual walk with Him, right? First He keeps you, then He keeps your family, right? What comes before the children is what? Your marriage, right? So keeping your own walk with Him, which can be a challenge at times, right? Especially with all the demands of life, but God gets first. So first us, marriage, family, after family, then that's the home. And then from there you can start doing ministry out in, right? And that's really the order of it. And sometimes that's a real struggle to maintain that balance, but in that order. But really, okay, we're terrified because we think, oh, all of the suffering that will happen in the home, or to break up the home, to destroy the home. But the destroying angels were not permitted to touch any of the homes of the Israelites while the blood was on the doorpost. Of course, the doorposts also represent the law as well. So it needs to be a law-abiding, commandment-keeping, Jesus-believing home. Right? You need the faith of Jesus, you need the commandments of God. You need to be doing the will of God in the home.
Exactly. Yeah. And it is also very directed to families, I think, in this verse, because what parents do after building their home, it is also to try to keep it, to protect your home, and to keep your children away from all these influences that are around, and you want to keep them from getting false friends or getting danger or diseases or whatever. And parents are working nonstop just to protect them,
From bad influences, smoking, or right, or just looking at other people and finding friends and say, well, if they do it, I'll do it too.
Exactly.
Right?
And in this verse, it's so specifically saying that if the Lord is not keeping this whole home, this whole family, these children, parents can be working and doing all the things that they know to do, but if God is not in it, it's empty, and they can run away, even with all the strictness that you were using in your home to keep your children.
And that is happening so much.
And that is really, you see it in when they grow up, what they do is they just want to flee from your home.
They want to break out.
It wasn't really protected by the Lord, but protected by your own
your own man-made walls. You were building the home. You were building the house, and the Lord wasn't in it. right? And the problem is, like, you see all these youth going away, they don't know how to have a relationship with God. And some of them, they even they kind of have a faith, but they don't have a faith.
Yeah.
They're totally out in the world. And they don't know how to walk with God. They don't know how to pray to God. They haven't found Him as a friend.
Yeah.
And some come back stronger and they find their way, right? Because God found them.
Exactly.
And that's usually because of a praying mother or praying father, right? But honestly, it's a pretty serious thing, because that's really the goal here.
Yeah.
Is that we want to see God guarding our families. We want to see God building our homes. And what more does it say? Well, so it says it's an empty thing to build without the Lord, right? It's an empty thing to try and keep or guard or protect something without the Lord. And then it says it's actually an empty thing. It's an empty thing for you to rise up early and to sit up late and to eat bread sorrowfully. Or I could say eat the bread of sorrow. So it's kind of like thinking and dwelling and just chewing and just stewing on all of these really negative thoughts. There are those moments, and it says, but it's empty. Without God, doesn't matter what you do. You can get up early for work. You do all your projects and you do everything, and you go to bed late. I don't know.
And you're still worrying about everything because the Lord is not really inside of it, and you are not walking in faith.
Which is what everybody does. But He actually says, He wants to reassure. He says, don't stay up late, right?
Yeah.
He will give you rest. Let Him give you rest. You are beloved. So that's even just affirming your personal walk with Him, and says, listen, this is how you're going to be dealt with individually, right? And this is how your home is going to be dealt with.
Yeah.
And this is how I want to keep the whole city, the New Jerusalem, my whole people, right? This is how I would like to keep the whole world. It's just in the Lord.
Yeah.
So that's the goal. Okay?
I mean, it's difficult just to trust, that He will take care of everything, so that you really walk in trust that He will give you the bread, that He will give the protection, that He will build your home, and that you don't have to worry about all these things. You don't have to run from early in the morning till late in the evening to do all those things that the Lord wants to do for you.
I have to provide for myself. I have to feed myself. I have to raise my kids myself. I have to build the house myself. I have to, right?
Yeah.
But He says, listen, He even wants to give you sleep.
Yes.
He even wants to be part of your sleep. He's like, I'll watch you while you sleep. I'll keep you while you sleep.
Exactly.
And He even can build you up while you sleep. Okay, do you want to go to the next verse, which is actually kind of the point of it?
Lo, children are an heritage of the Lord, and the fruit of the womb is His reward.
All right, so
Yes.
So it's actually saying, like, lo, see, behold, look. Like, He wants you to see this. He wants you to understand this. Obviously, people are not getting this. Children are the inheritance. That's what it means when it says that. The inheritance of the Lord. The inheritance is a nice thing, right? People usually like inheritances in this world, And from Him, children are actually His inheritance. It's something that He wants to give to us. And what's so beautiful is that if He gives it to us, it's our Father is giving to us a special inheritance. Also, part of the inheritance that He gave was not just being a king and building things up and keeping, of course, His wife happy, but also having children, multiplying. So when God has given you a trust in being like a husband of a home, or me, the whole point is like multiplying you so that it's like there's more Christians. And it's actually His reward. I mean, it's so nice. The fruit of the womb, of course, it comes through a little bit of suffering. Comes through pleasure, then comes through suffering.
But you forget everything once you have the reward.
Yeah, but it's like the cross, right? I mean, it was such an amazing thing to make man. God and Christ, they loved making man. It was a pleasurable thing. When they fell away, the only way that they could be born again was through the cross of Christ. It pleased them to save man. It was a pleasure to begin that experience because they knew that it would succeed. But yet it was painful bringing it out, right? And that was, so God, of course, saves us through Christ. And man has his children through the woman. And it's a painful experience, but there's a reward to it.
Exactly.
Right? Okay, the next verse. You want to comment any more on that? Okay.
As arrows are in the hand of a mighty man, so are children of the youth.
Yes. Arrows in the hand of a mighty man. You think of a strong man, like a warrior, right? Even though the children, they're going to be different. Our boy, he seems to he likes cars, and he likes building things, and he likes to watch, he likes tools, and he really likes boy things. I never had a father growing up. I didn't like that stuff, right? And I lived a city life with nothing. My head was empty because the Lord wasn't in my home. Thankfully, the Lord came into my life, changed my life. But when you look at Grace, she's a mama bear. Yeah. She loves babies, and she loves to teach. She's kind of a leader type, and they both kind of have their different qualities. Okay, so if that's the way that it is, then we're gonna teach them to, in those interests, to guide those interests, not to break their interests, to say, no, you're going to be a doctor and you're going to be a doctor. Now, we're going to guide them according to their interests so that they can express that in a healthy way that will be to the glory of God.
Exactly.
And that it can fight the war.
Exactly.
Right? One arrow is not like the other arrow. They're all different arrows.
And they all shoot in different directions, where you want them to go to.
Yeah.
But you guide them in the way that they will.
That's the thing, is that with the Lord, and that's the whole thing, except the Lord's building the house.
Exactly.
Except the Lord is telling you where to aim, it's going to be for nothing.
Exactly.
Right? So, and unless the Lord gives you strength, because all the strength comes from the Lord, then it's for nothing as well. So this is interesting. So, okay, if Grace is good at teaching, and she likes to teach children, well, then we want to kind of cultivate that into teaching for the Lord.
She can evolve in this exact character and in this habit and in this talent.
But in a positive way, exactly. where the Lord is in it, and that the Lord is also building her up, right? And also with him, if he wants to be a mechanic, okay. If he wants to be a builder, okay. But how can we do that in a way that you can serve the Lord and fight against all of the evil that's going on, that's prevailing right now? Okay? We have one last verse, right? It's connected to verse 4 and 3.
Happy is the man that hath his quiver full of them. They shall not be ashamed, but they shall speak with the enemies in the gate. Happy.
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 Happy. Happy.
Yeah.
Happy is a man that has a lot of them.
Exactly.
I think that's it. All right. Happy. I mean, that's a happy way to end it.
It is.
Happy is the man that has a lot of them. But, it's interesting that the Proverbs say that a child that reproaches his father and his mother, or that sins, is a shame to his father and his mother, right? It's a grief to his father. And if the grief to his father, then he's not happy, right? He's only happy if he's a mighty man in the Lord, right? He's warring a good warfare in the Lord.
And if the Lord was building the home, if he was protecting, if he was giving them as a reward, and if he was making the parents so strong so they can be guided in the right direction.
It's really, have you ever tried to use a bow and arrow?
Not really.
There's so much tension that you need to be super strong. It's not, you can't just be weak. I mean, it's tough to pull back this. It's because you have to think of the kind of force that is required to shoot that at your target. Okay? Because most people, they'll try and they just do a little bit, and then it falls right to the ground.
Exactly.
You don't want your children to fall. You don't want them to fall. You need to be strong in the Lord.
Exactly.
So
sometimes there is needed a little bit of tension to, a little bit of hardship, a little bit of, making the children to listen and to guide them in the right way, so that they, when you let go of it,
You're happy because it hit your target.
They already know where to go,
Right.
in what direction.
Happy
to go.
is the man whose children fear the Lord.
Exactly.
But, it's a lot of tension that is required.
Yeah, but if it's with the Lord, happy is the man.
That's great because we never thought about that. But that's really hard as well.
It's very beautiful.
But the thing is that God's purpose is not to say, don't have any children. Now, he may be saying that to you. He may be saying that to you. At the same time, it's not just so black and white to say, well, we're near the end, therefore don't have any children. It could be that God wants you to have a child. Just Yasha, he's not even 2 years old. And God told me a year and a half before he'd be born, gave me his name, which is kind of an unusual name, Yasha.
Yeah.
Means it's the verb, the action for saving. And he told me, he actually gave him a name, and he gave him that kind of purpose. And actually, just as I was going into the prayer to begin Pentecost, that's when he was born, and it was like he was my Pentecost boy. So I really liked that. He was a reward. He was a gift from the Lord. I mean, both. If we can fight a good warfare, if the Lord's building our home and the Lord's building us and strengthening us and helping us, then you know what? We don't need to be ashamed. Yeah. I see a lot of parents today, they're raising their children, they're so ashamed of what their children are becoming, or they're happy, but their children are entirely worldly. And I think that that's not good either, because we shouldn't have to convince ourselves that these children are warring a good warfare when they're watching football, Happy is the man whose quiver is full of them. They shall not be ashamed, but they shall speak with the enemies in the gates. Somebody's going to comment about football probably under the description, just so you know. But they shall speak. I'm not speaking against football. I'm just saying the point is that we don't want to be involved in so many secular affairs because there's a warfare right now. I mean, what enemy wants to speak with you? I mean, a watchman sees them, right? Sees somebody coming to their gates, right? And typically what's going to happen is they're going to make a warfare. What does that mean? They should speak with the enemy. You don't speak with the enemy in the gates, right? Was it in their gates?
Maybe I don't know, it sounds to me like it is a lot of wisdom,
What?
Because if the children, or if somebody, an enemy, wants to make war, wants to do harm, that they have the wisdom how to talk,
to deal with
their
enemies,
with these enemies, to turn it out in a good way.
And that their children actually are causing that. Well, I think it's even more than that. I mean, you say speak with the enemies in the gates. Yeah, and obviously turning the heart to the enemies to the Lord, that's an important thing. Yeah. But I think it's more than that. When you shoot them out, when they go out into the world, right? When they get out of the gates, right? It's the thing is that they're gonna. That's gonna be a serious problem for them, right? And are they going to be able to? Right? Are they going to be not in a way that they're conforming to the enemies, but they're addressing, that they're meeting that they're hitting the target.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? So I think that's more the idea. But again, it's all about warfare and about the Lord building the house. And I just really think it's important for us to realize that we don't need to be afraid. We should be afraid if God's not building our home.
Exactly.
We should be afraid if God is not keeping and guarding our home. So if we realize that, it's a reward, it's an inheritance, it's a blessing. Think about it. Those children, if God is building them, He's not building them for this world. He's building them for heaven. That means that when God gives you children, these are forever children, if you raise them right.
Exactly, yeah.
These are eternal children. It means you have children forever. Who can estimate forever? Now, if you don't have children, you'll have them never.
Yeah.
Get that, right? Get that. If you have the children, you can have them forever if the Lord is building the house. If the Lord is building a house, but you choose not to have children, you will have them never, and that soul will never be saved because they were never. They just were never anything. when they could have been,
Mm-hmm.
had you not been ruled by the spirit of fear. Of course, everybody has their perfect gift, and maybe God says to you, no.
Mm-hmm.
And that needs to be respected, right?
Yeah.
Let each one be persuaded in his own mind, but we are reaching a very difficult time for sure. But it does say, happy is the man whose quiver is full of them.
Exactly.
And I'm already happy. I'm super, super happy with 2. 2 make me so joyful. I would like 2 more.
Yeah, I mean, that was always my issue because I was always very afraid. And even the first one was already, should I have one? Should I not have one? And I was really struggling, especially when she came and she got 1 year old and the whole world was in trouble with the virus and these things. And I was like, oh my dear, where did I put my daughter into in this world? And I was really struggling with having another one, but God made it happen. When we were studying together these verses, it was just very encouraging that it doesn't matter what happened, if you have 1 child, if you have 2, if you have none, if you have 4 or 5 or 6, whatever, that if God is in it, that you have nothing to fear, because it's all in His hands. He is the one that is building it. He's the one that is giving the children. He's the one that is protecting them, and He's the one that will use them. So the important thing is that we let Him be part of our home, that we let
Him be
Him
the king of the home, the builder of the home, the protector of the home.
That we let Him be the one.
The all in all.
Everything, from 0 to the end. He is the one guiding everything.
Amen.
Yeah. Well, I hope you liked that little study that we had, and it can be a blessing to you, as it was for me. Yeah. And if you liked it, just give a thumbs up and share this video with whomever you think it can be a blessing to. Bye.
And you should subscribe too. Don't forget to subscribe, because she really needs subscribers. It helps the channel to be seen. All right. Bye.
Bye.